Hey, anyone notice something odd, an absence of some people who probably have a big story to tell? The fake news always obsesses about what jurors have to say after a big trial, like the Trump trial. Why haven't we heard from the jurors? They haven't been on the Today Show. They haven't been on 60 Minutes. I have not heard a peep out of these jurors. What is going on? This was a trial of global importance, right? They wanted us all obsessed with it. And the fake news, they were, legal panels after legal panels and live coverage, all that stuff. And we haven't heard a peep from the jurors. Don't they want to hear from them? What is going on? It's pretty much kind of customary to talk to the jurors after a big case, even with the most controversial, potentially dangerous defendants like El Chapo, the drug lord from, where's he from? Mexico, remember? They went down there, or actually the Mexicans got him, brought him here. It was pretty amazing. Well, he was convicted of about 50,000 crimes, and afterwards, guess what happened? One of the jurors talked. Yeah, the jurors spoke regarding the conviction and everything that was going on in the deliberation room. How about John Gotti? All right, they told us he was a bad mobster, and after it went down, we actually did hear from one of the jurors after he was convicted. Granted, he wanted his identity kind of shrouded. They digitized it. He didn't want to be known. But this is kind of what happens. Whitey Bulger, the guy from Boston who was on the run, he killed, they say, 150 people with his bare hands. He liked to strangle people, they say. I read that once. Well, it was a big case, wasn't it?
Fugitive mobster James Whitey Bulger is finally captured.
After 16 years, the FBI finally has its man. Boston mob boss James Whitey Bulger was captured in Southern California.
One of the most infamous mobsters of the 20th century was finally brought to justice today. James Whitey Bulger, who led Boston's Winter Hill Gang in the 1970s and 80s, was convicted of federal racketeering and conspiracy charges.
Wow. Bad guy. He was killed in prison, by the way. But he had a lot of friends out there who might be angry at jurors for convicting him. Guess what? They spoke. They told their story.
When we went in there, it was nothing what I thought it was going to be. It was more or less, we didn't know what was going on. It was very, very overwhelming. With 12 different people, there's 12 different opinions of what should be going on.
I made my decision, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I think that he was convicted of enough things that there's not. I'm not out to go after somebody for no reason whatsoever.
And it really did disturb us. As the verdict was being read out, many of us, the men, the women, we talked about it after, were literally shaking, tears.
Well, good for them. It was a big story, and they spoke out, and they weren't afraid for their safety. I guess you got to be a little bit cautious, but you know, we're all kind of looking out for each other. They wouldn't be so stupid as to do something, would they? This particular juror, she actually goes a little bit deeper. Yeah, Whitey Bulger was a bad guy, and she voted to convict. But you know what she noticed? How bad the Department of Justice was, how bad the FBI, how corrupt these guys were. Some of them were in cahoots with Whitey Bulger.
Throughout this trial, what I've seen and what I've been heartbroken by is the corruption within the Department of Justice. And that would be the aspect of it that I just can't let go. I don't want to be focused on the mob and all that stuff, the next Bulger story type of thing. It's more the corruption, the depth of it, and how did this happen, and how do we make sure it's not happening anymore?
Wow, it's happening all the time. This is 11 years ago. Before anybody heard about MAGA, Make America Great Again, of which I am a proud member, a part of, but this is serious stuff, and it's not being addressed. She has more to say about the FBI now.
Morris, his corruption, his depth of corruption, the fact that 2 men were murdered, cold-bloodedly because he let information leak out. And he basically got a slap on the hand. I think it was 1 week with no pay, something ridiculous.
It was paltry.
Yes, and then he was given pay raises and, promotions, and he ended up retiring from the FBI with a full pension. And it was just mind-boggling. You're sitting there thinking, how can this be happening? And he was treated by the prosecuting attorneys with utmost respect. It was absolutely appalling to me. It was disgusting.
Wow. Nothing has changed. In fact, it's gotten worse. Instead of meddling with the mob, they're meddling in our history, presidential elections, Strzok, Page, covering up the laptop. It goes on and on and on. The raid on Mar-a-Lago. 11 years ago, this fine citizen spotted it, and nothing was done. So where does that put us with the Trump trial and the jurors? Why don't you speak up? Why don't you say something? I get it, actually. They're trying to create this, you are afraid of the MAGA mob, right? MAGA, we can't be trusted. Oh, we're just a bunch of crazy people. We're not, actually. We don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, including and especially the jurors. You know, it's really not on you. Donald Trump said, if the judge gave the jury those instructions about Mother Teresa would have been convicted. Still, a lot of this stuff was so hyped by the judge, by the prosecutors, and of course, the fake news. Watch out for MAGA.
My first thought when this came down was I was fearful for the judge's safety and the jury's safety.
The invasion of privacy, the threats of personal safety that logically follow from that. And that is because of Donald Trump's profile and the invitations to violence that he invites into legal proceedings.
The threats on jurors, people trying to identify who these jurors are, trying to threaten them with violence.
Jurors certainly must continue to be protected.
All right. Give me a break, okay? That's all wishful thinking, okay? The judge is not actually, there were no threats. There was nothing. There's one little item that hasn't gone away about possible juror misconduct. Get to that in a moment. The judge told the jury right after the verdict, you can say now whatever you want. You are free to discuss the case with anyone you would like to discuss it with, but you're also free not to. And the not to part, right, lends itself to this whole fake narrative that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, a threat to the criminal justice, and these people have to fear for their safety. No, they don't. That is a myth. And Stephen Colbert says he got a juror. This is a goof. It's not really that funny, but it's a little bit, I don't know what it is, but let's take a look.
Where are the jurors? They're now released by the judge, and they're allowed to talk. So everyone in TV is fighting for the exclusive first interview. And ladies and gentlemen, The Late Show got it. Joining us right now on the condition of complete anonymity, please welcome juror number 11. Hello, juror number 11.
Hello, Stephen. It is great to be back on your show. I mean, on your show for the very first time.
All right, I think they're trying to have a joke, right? That's Melania, ha, 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 voted to convict. If only the comedians, if only the media were kind of making fun of the powerful, right? That's kind of what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to afflict the comfort, how does it go again? Comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, right? Comedians, media, journalists, and it's the opposite, and it's wrong. And they're letting them get away with so much. Something else about juries, they're hiding behind this verdict.
President Trump is now a convicted felon, convicted and decided by a jury of his peers.
Donald Trump was entitled to a trial by a jury of his peers. He received it.
This was a jury. This is a jury of his peers, a jury of fellow New Yorkers, as he is.
All right, you see? A jury did it, a jury. That's a jury of his peers. Number one, he doesn't have any peers. He's a former president. It is a unique position constitutionally. We really do have impeachment for offenses by him. That was an appropriate forum. They did it often enough, right? But not this. But you notice, like, a jury of his peers. A jury did it. I've heard that excuse before. Emmett Till, young man beaten to death all the way back in the 1950s. What did he do? He said hello to a white woman, something like that. And an all-white mob beat him to death. And 3 people, I believe, were arrested. And the jury said, we don't see no problem here. and let him go, right? A jury of the accuser's peers found nothing to see here. So a jury, I'm told, gets it wrong sometimes. Seems to be a lot of people who think that a lot of murderers were let free that day. All right, so we've seen this before. All right, so back to the situation with Trump. I mentioned earlier that he is not a convicted felon, and he might never be one. So he doesn't become a convicted felon until sentencing, okay? And there may be a problem. The fake news is not covering it, and that means conservative media won't cover it. Too many people in conservative media, they are reliant on the fake news. They got to do it, and then we complain about it, okay? Since the fake news have ignored the judge's letter that was sent out about 10 days ago or so, I think it's devastating. It's fascinating. June 7th, 2024. Take a look at this. This is from the judge to the prosecutors and the defense. Today, the court became aware of a comment that was posted on the Unified Court System's public Facebook page, and which I now bring to your attention. In the comment, the user, Michael Anderson, states, and let's put up the Facebook post, "My cousin is a juror and says Trump is getting convicted. Thank you, folks, for all your hard work." Now, the thing is, this was posted, folks, the day before the verdict. And you'll remember the verdict came down late in the afternoon. So did somebody's cousin who was on the jury tell this guy? And were they done deliberating? I mean, this would be a mistrial, a total mistrial. Now, this has not been debunked. You know, people on the internet say it's debunked. I remember when 51 intelligence officials told us something else was debunked. This is a real thing, and it might ultimately be the biggest thing of this entire trial. I don't care that they're not talking about it. Nobody has debunked this letter. It could still happen. It could still happen. All right. Next, please. Remember George Santos? You know what would be great? To have him in Congress right now. Because, well, Republicans need all the help they can get. Remember, they drove him out of Congress, Republicans leading the way because he lied about being on the volleyball team, something like that. So back in January of 2023, Republicans had a, well, we should have had a bigger majority, but what is it there? 9 seats, 9 seats. What is that down to today? It's down to 5 seats and could be lower pretty soon. And it looks like no one's saying the Democrats cannot take back the House in 24. That can happen. And if it does, some things that have not been anticipated could happen. Number one, right now, it looks very, very stupid. All the passion, all the ferocity that Republicans mustered to get George Santos out. Remember?
Santos tried to exploit every aspect of his candidacy for personal financial gain.
George Santos has built his persona, his personal and political life, on a foundation of lies.
I myself have been a victim of George Santos and as well as other members of Congress in terms of defrauding through public donations. I had received an ethics complaint from the FEC, which I had to spend tens of thousands to defend myself. You, sir, are a crook.
All right, well, you don't actually know that, all right? Santos. I had, I don't know, a special spot in my heart for George Santos. I don't think he was all that bad. May I see George Santos? He was defending himself that day, and he had some pretty significant help. He had Matt Gaetz. He had a few other people. Meanwhile, Menendez, he's still a United States Senator. Menendez is still a United States Senator, even though they found gold bars under his pillowcase, right? I mean, come on. It's incredible. Democrats really stick together.